आज जो है पढ़ने का मन कर रहा है तुम लोग का? नहीं, ऐसे ही पूछ रहा हूँ। मेरे फ्रेम में आ रहा है? ठीक है। फ्रेडरिक्स, yesterday I think we discussed the Riggs criticism of, तो मुस्कुराओ, आप दिल्ली में हैं। चलो तुम्हारे लिए एक शेर सुना देता हूँ यार, तुम इतना दुखी क्यों लग रहे हो? बहुत दिनों से केजरीवाल के बारे में नहीं सुना हम लोगों ने, है कि नहीं? सो अमित शाह सेड टू मोदी, सर आप जैसे ही आप बोलो उन्होंने रुक जाओ, तुम मुझे तुम ही कहो तो अच्छा है, ये आप ना जाने केजरीवाल सर क्यों लगता है। ठीक है, थोड़ा खुश रहो। आईएएस बनने के लिए रोने की जरूरत नहीं है। बी सिंसियर, डोंट बी सीरियस। ओके, सो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट फ्रेडरिक्स। ओके, फ्रेडरिक्स, जॉन गॉस एंड रॉबर्ट डाल। ओके, व्हाई दे आर and what is the logic of criticism of Weber? Okay, what are they criticizing? The method of Weber or the structure of bureaucracy? Method, both. Okay, how why, I mean, how do they criticize the method of Weber? If you get a single question on what is the Riggs criticism of Weberian bureaucracy, what will you write? नहीं, पहले जो बेसिक क्रिटिसिज्म वो बताओ। नॉन इकोलॉजिकल है, ठीक है, डायनेमिक इक्विलिब्रियम के लिए काम नहीं करता, स्टैटिक इक्विलिब्रियम के लिए काम करता है, आइडियल नहीं है, क्रॉस कल्चरल स्टडी नहीं है, द क्लेम फॉर अ साइंस और द आइडियल स्ट्रक्चर इज नॉट वैलिड। ओके, एंड ऑल्सो इन सर्टेन सोसाइटीज वेरियस अदर टाइप्स ऑफ bureaucracies may be more successful rather than bureaucracy. Okay, so Merle Fenshaw की typology भी हमने discuss किया. Okay, we discussed, he classified bureaucracy into various types and not necessarily a rational bureaucracy. Okay, what were those categories? Military dominated, ruler dominated, ruling and party based. या पार्टी स्टेट ब्यूरोक्रेसी. ओके, पार्टी स्टेट ब्यूरोक्रेसी obviously cannot be exactly bureaucracy, but the administrative structure and the political structure does not distinguish much. Okay, they are almost similar. So neutrality, anonymity or dichotomy is not visible in the party state bureaucracy. Fine. Okay, there are another number of people who have criticized Weber. Okay, like we have already discussed, the at least a reference was made to Merton and Selznick. What is the criticism? Displacement of goals, right? So we'll study the case study of Selznick. Okay, Selznick conducted a case study, very famous case study known as the TV and the grassroots. Okay, TV is the Tennessee Valley Authority, just like Damodar Valley Corporation Authority we have. Okay, it was in fact formed on this basis only. So TVA and the grassroots is a classic case study. Okay, where Selznick is saying that the government wanted to develop this project with the help of local people, local farmers. Okay, so government basically asked bureaucracy to include the local farmers into the Tennessee Valley Authority or the development of this multi-purpose river valley project. But what happened over the time? The first thing was the acquisition of land. Okay, now the number of farmers, the rich landlords, okay, they were not ready to part away with their land. Okay. Obviously, there were some small-time farmers also. So what happened over the time, the bureaucracy, because it could not acquire the land, okay, and the local farmers, okay, they created a kind of threat to the bureaucracy. So what the bureaucracy did, okay, the bureaucracy aligned with the elite farmers or the rich landlords, okay, and started acting against the poor landlords or the small-time farmers. Okay. So he said he studied it for a long period of time, and he said that over time what happened, the very purpose of the government to include the local farmers was eliminated. Bureaucracy, the moment bureaucracy found a threat to its stability or its system, protest against the system, that very moment it aligned with the rich landlords. That means what? It can do anything to preserve its order. The purpose of the government was not to align with the rich landlords but with the local farmers. Okay. So saying it aligned with the powerful groups within that area just to protect itself. Okay. Ultimately, this project developed, but it was not due to the or with the participation of the people, but it was purely administration led. So through his study, he wants to prove that the bureaucracy, the moment it finds a threat, it can align with any interest group, any power group, and purpose of the government was relinquished by the bureaucracy. Okay, no more concern with the purpose. The only concern was that how do we secure our position within the government. Okay, this is a very famous case study. Okay, even though it may not be completely true that everywhere the bureaucracy will reflect the same thing, but even if you see in India also the same thing happened. The Indian administration or government wanted to bring land reforms. The land reforms could not be successful. Why? Because there were powerful people behind the land reforms. Most of them were politicians or the bureaucracies and the rich landlords' interests, they coincided. Most of them coming from those backgrounds. Okay. So we could not bring the land reform in India also because of that reason, that bureaucracy aligns with the power groups. It has the tendency to align with the power groups and not necessarily work for the public interest. Okay, so it is basically the study of behavior of bureaucracy, not the structure. Okay, you can write few lines. Okay, Selznick or the case study, TV and the grassroots. Okay, TV and the grassroots. The classic case study of Philip Selznick. Case study of Philip Selznick. Selznick highlighted a specific type of bureaucratic behavior. Specific type of bureaucratic behavior when faced by an opposition. Okay. In his study, he highlighted that the bureaucracy can discard. In his study, he highlighted that the bureaucracy can discard the formally decided goals. The formally decided goals in order to preserve its own power. Sorry. Okay. The project which was to be completed with the help of local participation, local participation was ultimately led by the bureaucracy alone. Led by the bureaucracy alone. In fact, it aligned with the local elites. Local elites. So aligning of the bureaucracy with the local elites, what does it depict? It is not interested in the serving the society. Okay, it is not basically pro-people. Its tendency is to preserve its order. So even if to preserve this order, it has to align with the political class, with the corporates, with any other nexus, it will do so. So it does not depict the behavior of a single bureaucrat. It depicts the behavior of the system. Fine. Finally, displacement of goals takes place. They protect their own order, and ultimately government has to discard the very goal which it decided. Okay. So Selznick and Merton. Okay. There is another person, Klaus Off. He is a neo-Marxist, a type of neo-Marxist. Critical theorist and neo-Marxist, Klaus Off. Okay. So Klaus Off is saying that bureaucracy has the rational bureaucracy of Weber. Okay, it has utility if we have to implement the rules, regulations and procedures. Okay, if you have to do things which are as it is, that is programmed and routine, then its rationality is extraordinary. But if you have to go for any social development, okay, any type of dynamic change if you have to bring, then its rationality is not there, or it does not have that kind of rationality. Weber never conceived it. Okay. Weber conceived the bureaucracy as a tool of development. Politics using the instrument of bureaucracy to achieve social development, whereas Off is saying that any kind of social development cannot be brought about by bureaucracy. The bureaucracy can only maintain the power and authority, nothing else. Okay. So he identifies two kinds of rationality. Okay. One is the procedural or organizational rationality. So he is saying bureaucracy has organizational rationality, but not the systemic. Okay, systemic means if for these things it's not required. For maintenance, for authority or exercising authority, for control, the bureaucracy is perfectly rational. But as far as the societal development is concerned, it is not rational. So according to Off, the bureaucracy or the Weberian bureaucracy cannot be used for social development. But Weber does not conceive bureaucracy in that term. Weber conceives bureaucracy as the effective tool of development under the modern rational society. Okay, and this is a very important criticism. In fact, it is considered to be a very strong criticism of the Weberian model. Okay, कोई doubt है? ठीक है. So procedural मतलब if the order has to be followed, any organization, okay, or any organization you compare with the bureaucracy in terms of following the procedure, then the bureaucracy is the most rational. But if you see in terms of achieving the social development, bureaucracy is incompetent. Can you see this in India? Do you have examples for this in India? Till the time the state was monopolist in nature. Okay, mostly till 1990s at least, you can imagine that way. Okay, welfare state but monopolist. Till that time the bureaucracy was functioning. I mean, there was not much problem, okay, with the functioning of bureaucracy. Less conflict was visible. The moment the bureaucracy was asked to reduce its power by democratic decentralization. Understanding? Your democratically decentralized means what? You are taking away the power which was given earlier to the administration, to the local governments. That very moment you will find the conflict between the local governments and the administration. Okay, DRDA, we will study in paper 2. Emergence of DRDA, District Rural Development Agency, the position of or the role of collector with respect to the local governance. Okay. So the state governments, what they did? They tried to strengthen the power of the collector. Okay. They never tried to reduce the power of the collector so that the local governments can benefit. Their tendency was to strengthen the power of the collector, which was visible. Okay. There is something known as Jila Parishad. Okay. So in the Jila Parishad, the collector was made the chairman in number of districts. So if the collector becomes the chairman of Jila Parishad, what is the utility of having a local government when ultimately it has to be controlled by an administrator? So you will find that the moment you try to take away the power from the bureaucracy, that very moment they will devise some other tool to use or centralize the power again back to themselves. Okay. Even after the coming of the corporates, okay, the Transparency International report is there, or for that matter, what is that? Global Competitiveness Report, World Economic Forum. Okay. UNCTAD. What is UNCTAD? United Nations Trade and Development. What does it do? Okay. So UNCTAD report is also there, which is very famous. Okay, that is also saying that in India the average time to open up a business is much, or the span of opening up a business is much longer than any other country in the South Asian region. Okay. So out of 131 countries, India ranks 26th. Okay, that means there are obviously 25 better countries than India. Okay. So all this convey that, okay, in spite of the globalization we have done, decentralization we have done, the tendency of the bureaucracy to lose the power is not visible. Okay. Any reform that you bring today also, so most of the reforms are challenged within the bureaucracy itself. The IAS lobby does not want the IPS or the IRS or the other offices or services to have a similar power. Why? Because the IAS lobby can easily manipulate the policy makers. So most of the policies they make, okay, first the IAS lobby looks into the policy that, okay, what is the benefit for me? Okay, if there is a benefit for me, okay, it is fine, sir. That is what they do. Okay. So you can say that, okay, this study was conducted in 1967, but still it is relevant. Okay. Clause of, okay, another, there are two people, no need to know the names, you can just write the surname, Rudolph. Okay. So Rudolph is saying that husband and wife both. Okay. So they are saying that if we see that bureaucracy talks about technical competence, okay, technical competence, expertise, and at the same time, these are the two defining features: technical competence and an expected disciplined conduct. That means there is a hierarchy, and according to hierarchy you have to function. So you cannot have any deviation as far as your behavior or conduct is concerned apart from what has been defined in the rules. Okay. And at the same time, you have a technical competence. Are you understanding? So you have merit, you have expertise, and at the same time, you do not have the freedom to exercise this expertise. So they are saying that ultimately the characteristics of the bureaucracy themselves are contradictory to each other. So a person who is competent enough, who is expert enough, why will he not exercise his creativity? So if the system values the intelligence and the creativity, or the expertise, then the system must give the opportunity for exercise of this creativity, but it is not allowed. So they are saying ultimately the person or the incumbent of the position comes in conflict with the organization. They are highlighting this aspect, that how ultimately the bureaucrats themselves come in conflict with the bureaucracy. Because the more they get, or the more they move up the ladder hierarchy, the more expert they become. At least we can assume that way. That is what the hierarchy does. It provides you the opportunity to exercise your seniority or the seniority role of senior. So once you become senior, you have to go to higher position. Okay, that means your expertise has increased. But more you go to the higher position, what happens? The bureaucratic rigidity increases. Because your responsibility, your authority, control over you, everything increases now. Are you getting this point? So they are saying that when a person is competent and at the same time he is expected to exhibit a particular kind of behavior, what does this mean? That his competence has no value as far as his utility is concerned in the organization. नहीं समझ में आया? ठीक है, ज्वाइन मत करो फिर. आइए. What will you do in the civil services? You are reading so much, going there, analyzing each and every word in the pub-ad. Then you are going there. And the minister comes and says, अरे तेरे को लॉ नहीं आता, बता क्या कर रहा है यहाँ पे? So what will you do? Or you will say, see what is written, do it, finish. So only after 15 years of your service you may get some liberty. Okay, you will have a liberty right from the beginning with respect to the citizens. Okay, because they are the oppressed class. You can exercise power and feel that okay, you are powerful. Okay, so the concept of power will be visible, but maybe not the authority. Right. Okay. Technical competence, Rudolph, just name you can write. Technical competence or the expert nature of the bureaucrat requires scope of creativity. Scope of creativity. Whereas the system rewards a disciplined conduct. Okay, both these attributes may not coexist. And eventually the bureaucrat comes in conflict. With the organization itself. So this has a wider impact. Okay, later when you will study the motivation theories, okay, just behavioralism when we will study motivation theory. So in that one theory is there which talks about equity. Okay, equity theory. Stacey Adams, So equity theory is saying that how do you get motivated? So if you are working somewhere, you evaluate yourself. With whom? With first the similar inside who are working in the maybe same department or in another department at the same level, having the same level of qualification. Okay. So first you evaluate this similar inside, then the similar outside. People having engineering degree or maybe same competency in some other organization. Okay. If you are not satisfied with that, if you are not satisfied with the similar inside comparison, what will you do? If you are not, if you feel that okay, yes, even he is getting better than me, he is also getting better than me, then you leave the organization. Okay. Then you will go for dissimilar inside and dissimilar outside now. कि बीटेक एमबीए बेटर है या बीटेक बेटर है, ठीक है. फिर बीटेक एमबीए बेटर होता है तो फिर आप क्या करते हैं, उसको छोड़ के फिर एमबीए करने चले जाते हैं. Okay. Same way, if the bureaucracy, when the bureaucrat is intelligent and he is expected to have a certain level of competence and knowledge, when he goes inside the system, he starts comparing himself. Okay, not necessarily only within a system, but also with the other forms of organization, let's say private sector. So if the private sector is rewarding an engineer maybe n times better than the public servant in terms of incentive, job opportunity, growth, potential for exercising the creativity and innovation, then what happens? The brain drain takes place. Are you getting this point? So it has a wider impact. This conflict is not very simple. Okay, the conflict may lead to dissatisfaction, ultimately failure of number of policies. Okay, conflict between the bureaucrats, conflict between the bureaucrats and the politicians, conflict between the bureaucrats and the citizens. Okay. Police officers. Okay. So वाइफ से झगड़ा हुआ तो एनकाउंटर कर दिया, बताओ, ठीक है. They can. So logically, okay, misuse of power. So this results in corruption, maybe certain other excesses. Okay. But that is only a behavioral theory that can explain. Okay. Let us come to another person. Peters principle. Okay, this is also a big criticism of bureaucracy. Given by Lawrence J. Peter. So Peter principle. Okay, Peter principle is saying, okay, you kindly write it. In bureaucratic organizations, okay, in bureaucratic organizations, the managers, or you can also assume administrators, rise to their level of incompetence. Good. So they are criticizing what? The promotion policy, or the privileges, okay, which the system gives to the bureaucrats is not based on merit, but it is based on the duration of service or length of service. Length of service, Okay. In fact, it is said that in bureaucracy, no one is punished for wrongdoing and no one is rewarded for good work. Okay. So no incentive for hard work and no punishment for bad work or no work. So it is a very procedure based system where you will be promoted obviously after one level after the other, okay, only based on the length of the service. And it is very true. Why? Because there is no standardized performance appraisal system. Okay. It is automatic. It is assumed that if you have spent 5 years on this level, now you have become competent enough to acquire the next level. So before getting promoted, okay, there is no thorough evaluation of the person that whether he is fit to be in the next position or not. Okay. But this may not be exactly true for the private organization. Okay, he is using the word managers. Managers here, he referred to the people who are in the positions of power and authority, especially the middle and higher middle levels. Okay. So this can be applied to the bureaucratic organizations or the public organizations. If you see in India, okay, if we assume this is the hierarchy, so here it is purely seniority. So the higher levels it is merit cum seniority, at the middle level it is seniority cum merit, and at the lower level it is mostly only seniority. Okay. So what does it mean? Public, in India, government organization. People generally at the lowest level. Okay, because this time duration is basically decided by the government. So people at this level, they get promoted very late. Okay. And merit is not the criteria. So they are never motivated to perform. Okay. They are only waiting for their turn to come. Okay. So this increases what? The inertia of the organization. It does not bring much change. Okay. This level, seniority cum merit, obviously merit is the only an subsidiary criteria. It is not the primary criteria of promotion. It is first the seniority. So all the people who are senior enough will be, you can say, commissioned, and then ultimately one or few people who may be meritorious out of that, it may be selected. So seniority is the cardinal principle, not the merit. Once you find people who are senior enough to be promoted, then out of that you will compromise on the merit. Are you getting? So there is always a compromise on the merit, even if we say that merit is an important factor. Okay, but merit comes last. So here also see, not much motivation for performance. You know that while the moment you acquire the seniority, you will be promoted. Fine. This level, yes, we can say higher level. Okay, merit cum seniority is another principle which is followed, but mostly in the higher appointments, joint secretary and above, who are appointed directly by the cabinet committee on appointments. Okay. So there first they identify people who are worthy of that particular post, then they identify the names of all those people who are senior enough, okay, or who are from the following batches, let's say civil services. Okay. So maybe people from 2-3 batches are coordinated, and then ultimately who is deserving is appointed. But because this is a political post, political means appointed by the politician. So political masters have a greater say in the appointment. Ultimately what happens? Here also the merit is undermined. Kiran Bedi and Dadwal. So a junior batch officer was appointed the commissioner, obviously, so the senior batch officer could not work under the junior batch officer, impossible. It is directly violating the principle of hierarchy. So logically that person would have worked under her, okay, or at least would have been subordinate in terms of the experience or number of years of service. Okay. So this also, because it is politicized, it is just an example from India. Okay. In general also it happens. Top bureaucratic posts are basically political or appointed by the politicians. Okay. So Peter is saying, or Lawrence Peter is saying, that this is one criteria which makes the bureaucracy ineffective, because it is assumed that people acquire merit while working in the organization, and there is no way of evaluation of that merit. It is only the length of service which is used. So it has number of implications for the performance of administration. Like, what kind of implication it may have? People will become complacent. They will take things for granted. They will never be competitive in nature. Okay. Performance will be the last endeavor that they will pursue. Okay. Because they will be more concerned with maintaining the status quo rather than going for some initiatives, because they know initiative is not of much worth in this organization. Okay. So this creates what? This creates a bureaucracy which is obstruction to the development. The rigid nature of the bureaucracy is because of that. Because there is no way we can make them accountable. What is the accountability here? Nothing. If you are performing, then also you will be promoted. If you are not performing, then also you will be promoted. So who will want to work hard and get promoted? Same. Because they are not getting any extra incentives. Okay. But Sixth Pay Commission in India. Okay. Sixth Pay Commission came with this idea. Saxena Committee 2002. Okay, it comes with the idea that, okay, there must be an incentive linked to the performance of the bureaucrats. So government introduced the performance linked incentive system after the Saxena Committee recommendation and the Sixth Pay Commission. Okay. Based on that, now you can say that, okay, yes, most of the people, they are initiative takers, or at least the behavior of the bureaucracy, the traditional bureaucracy has changed now. But it is obviously very slow. Performance evaluation standards are still weak in India. Okay, we cannot quantify. Earlier the performance evaluation was based on ACR, Annual Confidential Report. Keep writing. Okay, first you write. Okay, Peter's principle criticizes the non-meritocratic basis of promotions within the bureaucracy. In bureaucracy, there are time-bound promotions. Time-bound promotions mostly based on the length of service. Rather than the performance. This is a big demotivator for the honest and achievement seekers within the bureaucracy. Whether you perform or don't. The promotion is guaranteed. Okay, this principle is reflected in the behavior of the bureaucrats. Number one, complacency as far as their position and authority is concerned. Second, lack of accountability. Okay, within this you write one line. In the absence of any standardized performance evaluation, the bureaucrats develop an attitude of, in the apostrophe you can write, an attitude of chalta hai. Chalta hai is the attitude. With a phrase used by one of the ex-bureaucrat, he is using the phrase, chalta hai. What does it mean? As is, where is basis? It's okay. So this what? This restricts the initiative within the bureaucracy. Okay. Next point, Ricky. Okay. For example, take the next point and write. For example, in India, the traditional method of performance evaluation, has been the ACR. That is annual confidential report. Okay, you can understand the confidential word, how secretive it is. Annual confidential report, where an annual performance evaluation of the subordinate is done by the superior. This report forms the basis of growth. For the entire career service. Not once, every year, but entire career service. That means what? This is the only criteria on which you are generally promoted, or you may occupy the positions of growth in the organization. There is no other report. as this report is totally in the hands of the superior. So what happens? What will happen? Now there is no benchmark. Okay, that you must have done this thing in 1 year, or every month this should be your target, you must complete it. Now there is no criteria. Whatever he does is now subject to the evaluation or the scrutiny of the superior. So superior, what he will do? Either he will bring his own subjective opinion, is it or not? Most of the evaluation to be dependent on superior. So it will be the superior's prerogative that what evaluation it is he is going to do, what remark he is going to give. Generally there are 5 categories: poor, average, okay, above average, good, okay, very good. Nobody gets good, very good, impossible. Okay, there is always an ego. Okay. So let us say nobody gets this. This is impossible. Okay. Very few may get this. Very few. Okay. Maybe after years and years of loyalty towards the superior. Okay. So then maybe he will be finally, you can say, he can achieve this. Okay. Most of the people will get this. Okay. Largest number will get this. Okay. So you can say almost 30% people here, hardly 10% here, okay, not even 2% here, and all of them here. So now what? This has become a convention that either it will be above average or it will be average. So everybody knows that what is going to be the rating, it doesn't matter now. It is the subjective criteria of the superior. Okay. So almost 60% weightage for this is in the hands of the superior. 40% may be some factual work you have done. Okay. So what happens? This creates a kind of psycho-fancy within the system. Okay. Diwali, Holi becomes the celebrations for the public servants. Okay. Okay. Not celebrations in the usual sense. Okay. But as the events which will guide their ACR. Okay. So you can see that behavior, that is visible. Otherwise there is no obligation on the subordinate. Okay. In the personal capacity he can, but not in the official capacity he can, or he should go to the superior. Okay. So here the seniors basically controlled the evaluation of performance. So ACR was existent until 2002. Okay. So in 2002 the Saxena committee came up with APAR. The concept of APAR, performance linked incentive system. 6th Pay Commission, when was it formed? 6-7. So let us say 2006-7. Performance linked incentive system. Okay. Now you write. The ACR. Okay. The ACR was a highly subjective tool which led to psycho-fancy and personal loyalty of the subordinate towards the superior. So see Weber's talk of impersonality, neutrality, okay, everything now vanishes. Okay. Until 2002, when the Saxena Committee recommended for an APAR, Annual Performance Appraisal Report. APAR, Annual Performance Appraisal Report, where the subordinate was allowed to make a self-assessment report. Of his achievement and claims during the year or during an year. So now under the APAR, the subordinate also got an opportunity first to come with the claims or the achievement which he makes. Okay, now he can put this in writing. There was a form, a proforma was given. In that proforma, he had to highlight his achievements during the year. Now this was the report. This was to be sent to the superior. Superior will review it. Okay. In case, let's say superior does not have or does not accept certain things. Okay. Then he will send it to his super superior. He will review it. If he also finds a doubt, then what? They will send it back and they will seek an explanation. If he is giving him any rating, then he will have to write the reasons that why is he giving. Okay, that is basically a rule in the government, that if you give extraordinary rating or if you give extraordinary bad, extraordinary good, then you have to write why. So in the earlier ACR, they could write why, but nobody could raise the question against it because the subordinate was not allowed. But here, if they used to or if they write why they have given such a rating, then the subordinate can contest it. He can appeal. Okay. He can give his own opinion. Fine. So now it is more democratized. Earlier it was only one-way evaluation. Okay. Also because of the 6th Pay Commission's recommendation, okay, and the 2nd ARC recommendation. Okay. 2nd ARC has come up with the performance management system. Okay. It wants to extend. ARC has come with a performance management system. It wants to extend the APAR. Okay. By using 360-degree or 180-degree evaluation. So 2nd ARC wants, okay, that we must extend the idea of the APAR into a performance management system, okay, which may use the 180-degree or 360-degree measure of or mechanism of evaluation of performance. Okay, what is 180-degree, 360-degree? All right. Okay, you can take it this way. So here the peers will also substantiate the claims. Okay, they can also give their reviews. If you now link the subordinates of the subordinate, then it will become 360 degree. Also the beneficiaries can also be added. let us say citizens, who have been the recipient of a particular service or whatever claims he make. So if you add that also, now it becomes a 360-degree evaluation. Okay. So obviously this evaluation is much more realistic, it is much more factual compared to the earlier. Even if somebody was making the claim, okay, he can duly forge the papers and substantiate the claim. But now, okay, he will have to do a reality check and the others can also verify that whatever the claim has been made. So second ARC is saying if we introduce these methods which are basically private sector or corporate sector methods, then okay, the performance appraisal or the annual performance appraisal, now it can be made more effective, more accountable. And also the motivation of the honest public servants will increase. Okay. That means good performers can be segregated from the bad performers. Are you understanding? So good and rotten apples in the same basket. Okay. And the government's preferring the rotten apples because they don't have to eat it, they have to serve it to the janta. Right. So at least this will separate the good from the bad. Okay. And most probably the good will be rewarded by the system. Okay. Now you write, just add it, because when you will go to paper 2, then you have to think of this principle. Okay. And how it can be linked to your paper 2. Right. Under APAR, the subjectivity in performance evaluation, under APAR, the subjectivity in performance evaluation is eliminated. As subordinate participates in his own appraisal. Okay. Later, in 2006-07, the 6th Pay Commission suggested for performance linked incentive system. Performance linked incentive system, whereby high performers can be motivated within the bureaucracy. In fact, the challenging tasks would be associated with high rewards, and people who are capable would be motivated to accept those tasks. This year there was a question, Prime Minister's Award, the same year introduced, 2006-07. Okay. Right, along with this. Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration. Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration is one of the most logical manifestations of government's willingness to separate, willingness to separate, the high performers from the underperformers. नहीं, public servants को. My father received this award in 2008. Okay. So, for Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve. Okay. So, this award, it's not IAS, सिर्फ IAS को, public services को. Okay. State में ऐसा ही award है Chief Minister's Award. Okay, for best public servant. Same thing. Okay. So it is quite obvious that these awards somewhere show the intention of the government that the bureaucratic performance must be improved. Okay, so we cannot say that government or political system is not willing, but the bureaucracies or the inherent structure of the bureaucracy is such that it is very difficult to separate non-performers from the performers. If you don't segregate it, obviously most of the people entering the bureaucracy will be demotivated after certain years of service and they will resign from the job. So 25% attrition rate in the higher civil services, especially IAS, okay, reflects it. So at the middle level, okay, 25% bureaucrats or IAS officers, okay, they resign from the job. So that is a very high number. 25% is a high attrition rate. Okay. So you can understand that, okay, these kind of mechanisms definitely going to be a deterrent against the traditional bureaucratic model of promotions or rewards. Okay. Add certain other things. 2005-6 or 2005-6, the second ARC in its report on refurbishing personnel administration, suggests for improving the scope of APAR into a comprehensive performance management system. Under the overall results development framework, RDF. It will include the tools like 180-degree and 360-degree evaluation. Tools like 180-degree and 360-degree evaluation, which would make the appraisal more democratic, and the promotions more objective. So see, we are talking about simply a Peters principle, but how we can extend a simple principle into the idea of or within the Indian administration. Okay, this is how we can lead an answer. It's not necessary that you will write 100 or 150 words only on Peters principle, because we cannot write. Okay, there is nothing much regarding that. Okay. But if you see, if bad people are promoted in the system, obviously it is a threat to the system itself. Okay. Also, if performance evaluation of performance criteria is not there within the bureaucracy, what will happen over the time? The bureaucracy, the people will become so inert, okay, that there will be no way by which you can exercise the authority and control over them. So they will become dysfunctional bureaucracies, defunct bureaucracies, or rival bureaucracies. They are known as rival bureaucracies. Okay. So any developmental goal, any developmental policy that you want to implement, the bureaucracy will become a threat to itself, a threat to that policy. That is known as a rival bureaucracy, working against, militating against the public interest. So it will act itself against the public interest. Okay. So you can link. It is a simple principle which says that there is an automatic promotion within the bureaucracy, but it has larger ramifications for the understanding of bureaucracy and society, political system. Okay. So any principle that you read, you kindly try linking it. Obviously, once you have knowledge, once you are enriched with the content, then you can link it. Okay. So in paper 1 also, if you encounter any theoretical, okay, any academic principle, any intellectual principle, okay, it has to be linked to the paper 2. Okay. Till that time your answer is not complete. Okay. Do you find any element of Taylor here? Performance linked incentive system is obviously coming from the idea of Taylorism. Okay. Performance as an important indicator of reward, criteria of Taylor. Okay. But it must also consist of punishment, carrot and stick both. Okay. So government is now deciding on the punishments also. Okay. Recently, the Modi government terminated an IAS officer and 2 IPS officers. Okay. And in fact, 230 civil servants from Group A and Group B combined. Okay. 1,000, some numbers are still, okay, names are being investigated. So it is probably first time that the government had removed people for incompetence. They might have removed them for corruption, maybe for something else, but they have not removed them for incompetence. Okay, so this is very unique. You can say that the bureaucratic organizations, if we have strong politics, okay, we can have a performing bureaucracy. Is it or not? If we have good political system, then definitely we can have a performing bureaucracy. It may not be honest. Okay. So politics shapes the administration, no doubt. Let us come back to another law, another principle. Okay. ये criticism है, ये तो clear है ना? अच्छा. Because I am not using the word, so you might again forget. This is very important. Okay. Parkinson's law. Okay, Parkinson is totally contradicting the claim of the Weber. Weber's claim that the bureaucracy is a meritocratic system, it is based on impersonal rules and regulation, it has or it does not have any tendency to exercise authority on its own or the behalf of on its own members, it does not get an opportunity to manipulate the system. Okay, whatever the claim Weber has made. Okay, it works for the public interest. It is merely an instrument which can be diverted towards the goals of the society. All the claim that Weber has made has been criticized by Parkinson. He is saying that in essence, the bureaucracy is not working on the law of rationality. It is not working on the law of rules and regulations, but it is working on some other laws. And what are those laws? He highlights the laws. Okay. First you write basic introduction. Write little bit of what he says. Okay. Right. The Parkinson's law. Yeah, Parkinson. Simply you can write Parkinson. Hope he was not suffering from the disease by his own name. So, the Parkinson contradicts the Weberian claim. Contradicts the Weberian claim of a competent impersonal bureaucracy. Impersonal bureaucracy. According to him, the bureaucrats are neither neutral nor apolitical. Next slide. They don't work for public interest. Public interest. In fact, they work like a lobby. They work like a lobby or a class. Work like a lobby or a class working for itself. In the bracket you can write, which is known as self-aggrandizement. They are working only for their own interest. Okay. He identifies the real laws on which the bureaucracy functions. Number one, law of rising pyramid. Number two, law of triviality. Law of rising pyramid of bureaucrats, law of triviality. Law of inverse. He's saying that bureaucracy, what is its behavior? Its behavior is to expand its power within the system. So he's saying the top bureaucracy. Okay, what is the behavior of top bureaucracy? The top bureaucracy is not working for the interest of the society, neither it is aligning with the political system to fulfill or make the public interest policies, but it is basically working for increasing its power and authority within the system. So, the moment a bureaucrat conceives of a new policy or a program, what is his first criteria? The first criteria is that how my power within the system will increase because of this. How can I create more departments under me so that eventually I become more powerful compared to the other bureaucrats. So saying there are various departments, okay, like if you take the real example, then child welfare, social justice department, welfare department, department for minorities, there are a number of activities which they are doing. But on the ground we don't find any consequence of that. Why? Because many of the departments are superfluous in nature. So he is saying what a typical bureaucrat does. The moment he gets an opportunity, okay, to bring an excuse for creating more departments under him, which increases his bureaucratic power within the organization. That means what? If he has more subordinates, then he is more powerful as a superior. If he has more departments, then he can seek more budget. And most of these departments will be defunct, but he can seek the budget. So what will happen? That money will go into his pocket or either for the interest of his own lobby. So he is saying that the expansion of the system or the department does not reflect in reality, or it is not in proportion to the expansion of the work. So the work is less, but the departmental structure which is created is much bigger than the work which has to be performed. So why it is done? So typical bureaucrat, what he does? He over glamorizes a work. He will bring number of intricacies into that, so that the political system is eager or ready to shed a part of the finance. Okay, this is necessary, so this is very important, this has to be done. Okay. So even you can say they can create departments related to cutlery. Okay, you understand the symbolic meaning? So it is saying that okay, they can create a department, full-fledged department with a secretary, okay, or a head and number of staff just for managing the cutlery of the government. So they have, okay, you can say they do not have any rationality, what Weber is saying, that they are highly rational people. He is saying, okay, they don't act rationally, their rationality is only their own interest. So how they can increase their net power within the system, that is the purpose. हाँ भैया कहाँ पर हो? ऐसे कुछ पहने नहीं हो तुम? Switch off. अच्छा, that is वो on है. तुम कांपोगे तो पढ़ोगे कैसे? हाँ? Jacket पहन के आओ. Fine. So what they will do? Okay, they will somehow create work. Okay, and that work will be something of a non-substantive nature. For that they will create a system. Okay, and then they will fund the system. So in the process what will happen? They will eventually expand their own powers. Okay, that is the rising pyramid of bureaucrats. That means the increase in the number of departments of the government does not reflect the nature of the work or the scope of the work which the government has to perform. You see UPA 2, how many ministries? 37. UPA 2. The Council of Ministers was almost around 84 ministers. Small, big, some मिला दो. 84 तो डिपार्टमेंट्स भी नहीं होंगे गवर्नमेंट के अंदर. ठीक है. यूपी is a typical example of the rising pyramid of bureaucracy. Okay, they have created departments for I don't know what all, maybe for Azam Khan's bhais also. Okay. So they created a department for each and everything. Okay, and nobody knew what these departments were doing. Okay. Only most of this is a natural tendency within the government that one secretary holds more than one department portfolio. Okay, generally that is a tendency of the government. Okay, that means there will always be more number of departments than the secretaries. Okay. So you can imagine there will always be a fight for the acquisition or the control over the departments. Okay, so he is saying that this is the natural tendency of bureaucracy to expand itself. It never wants to reduce itself. It always wants to expand itself. The more it expands, what happens? The maintenance cost increases and the developmental cost reduces. Or developmental expenditure reduces and the maintenance expenditure increases because you have to manage the system. Now that system is not doing anything, but you have to maintain it. At least you have to pay the electricity bill, at least you have to give the salary, okay, or for that matter, at least you have to maintain the structure. So what will happen? You will spend the money, now that department has no substantive work to do, okay. So ultimately it will increase the deficit of the government. That is the Parkinson's law, okay, right. Okay, first, okay, it's okay, first don't write, first understand this also. Law of triviality. He is saying that if you see a typical bureaucratic meeting, so what they do, in one meeting they decide when will be the next meeting. Okay. Then in the next meeting they will decide that, okay, finally in the next meeting we will decide that what we are going to do. So he is saying this keeps going on. Why it is done? Because they are not concerned with the substantive nature of work. What they want, they only focus on the trivial things which are of routine types. Okay, the things which they can predict, the things where they don't have to take initiative, okay, or the kind of activities which they can control easily, okay. For this they will be concerned. That means their entire resource, time, money, everything would be spent on pursuing the routine things which probably any qualified section officer can also do. There is no need for this elaborate bureaucracy. Okay. So if they have to only do the routine task or at least monitor the routine task, what is the utility of this merit-based system? So he is saying, but throughout their career, most of their time is spent on seeking the routine and avoiding the non-routine within the government. Most of the non-routine is performed by basically the specialist. Okay. So the bureaucrats don't generally engage themselves into that. He is saying law of triviality. Anywhere, any policy, any program, anything they will do, they will be more concerned with the trivial things. Minister साहब आएंगे कहाँ बैठेंगे? That is their concern. Okay, their concern is not that what can happen to the people. Okay, what will happen to the citizen. Their concern is not that. Helipad कहाँ बनेगा? अच्छा helicopter कैसे उतरेगा भाई पहाड़ में? So now he will be more concerned with that. He is not concerned about ecology. Okay, neither the habitation or habitat loss. He is not concerned with that. He is only concerned, okay, पहाड़ पे, hill पे helipad कैसे बनेगा? ठीक है, mobile helipad ले आओ. Okay, that is what is concerned. So the logic is what? They are obsessed with the routine. They are obsessed with the trivial things. They are obsessed with the data. Okay, they are not obsessed with the substantive aspect, neither the goals, nor the creative aspects, neither the non-routine functions, neither any kinds of, you can say, things which may be more emergent than what they are doing. So they are not concerned with the future. Okay. So he is saying, whatever the assumption the Weber makes, that these people, okay, have the ability to pursue this goal, he says it is not there. They are simply glorified clerks and nothing else. Okay. Right. Now you can write. Then we'll discuss this. First you write these two. Okay. Law of rising pyramid of bureaucrats. All three you have written. Take a paragraph. Now you can, one paragraph for this, then other for this, and then for this. Okay. Right. According to Parkinson, the expansion of bureaucratic organizations or the increasing number of departments within the government do not justify the scope of work which they perform. Bureaucracy has the inherent tendency of expanding itself through the creation of through the creation of new departments and organizations. A typical bureaucrat is megalomaniac. A typical bureaucrat is megalomaniac, that is power hungry, megalomaniac, and he tries to increase his net authority within the system by adding more number of subordinate levels under him. More number of subordinate levels under him. In the absence of any substantive task, he would create work unnecessary in nature. Just to justify the cost or the additional budget. So what he'll do? He'll try to create work out of nothing, something out of nothing. Okay. So you can imagine the level of corruption, that there is a strict guideline not to have any physical or a rigid or permanent construction within the national park. Okay, if you know the environmental laws. Okay. So national parks are the reserves, and you cannot have a permanent construction within the national parks like roads, hotels or anything. You cannot allow. Okay. So in one of the most famous and the most famous national parks of India, that is the Corbett. Okay. So one of the directors of the Corbett, in spite of and that is why the Supreme Court's judgment came. Supreme Court formed a committee under itself to monitor the environment. Only after that. So a tender was initiated, okay, and a Bangalore-based company was also given the tender to construct almost 1.2 kilometer road within the Corbett National Park. And the road was made. So you can imagine that formally tender allowed by the government or maybe by him, okay, and somebody applied for the tender and he got the tender and he constructed the road, and then somebody came to, or the media came to know that okay, this has happened, then somebody complained to the Supreme Court because it was a very strict violation. Okay. You don't have the right to change the natural habitat of those animals. Okay. It will disrupt the natural habitat. Okay. So see, they did it, and the tender was given for 7 crore rupees. 1.2 kilometer road, and you cannot make a pakka road. That means they would have made some road, but government allocated the budget. Somehow the director motivated the minister or maybe the ministry, okay, and they allocated it. Okay. So you see every year what PWD does. Okay, what is that department? telephone department. Okay. MTNL, BSNL, they are digging every year. Okay. Then electricity department comes, it digs again. Okay. The same place. Once it is dug by the telephone department, then once by the electricity department, the same place. And then again comes finally the PWD. Civic amenities, sewer, अच्छा ये भी खराब है. Okay. So why don't you coordinate your work? And when you are digging the or making a using the labor and the entire resource once, then why don't all of the three departments contribute together and say that okay, once and for all let us do it? But they have an excuse for that also कि बिजली उसी समय थोड़ा ना खराब होगी जिस समय पानी खराब होगा या सीवर खराब होगा. So electricity might require a repair some time in January, okay, but the road will require a repair in under the rainfall in July. Okay, that is what they do. So when there is a rainfall, they will have to dig the road. Okay. For that also they have logic that the budget comes in or the budget is given in April or March. Only after the budget comes, then only we can initiate the work, and that is why most of the times in July we are making the road. Okay. So it is not rational, or there is no rationality as far as the work and the increase in the number of departments and the increase in the expenditure which can be justified together. So same work they will expand, okay, many times and seek the finance for the same work. Right. So he is saying the rationality does not exist. Second law, the law of triviality. Okay. Bureaucrats, next paragraph लीजिए. Bureaucrats have a passion for details. They have a passion for details as they do not want any kind of scrutiny for their decisions. Any kind of scrutiny for their decisions. In fact, this promotes a conservative tendency. This promotes a conservative tendency where they don't want to take initiatives. Don't want to take initiatives. Okay, most of the time and resource spent is on routine tasks because they are predictable. Is on routine tasks because they are predictable. Okay, trivial issues become the central concern. And important issues are isolated to the background. Isolated into the background. Important issues are isolated into the background. Okay. It is similar to the Gresham's law of planning. Similar to the law of planning. Have you read about Gresham's law in economics? What is it? Same way, the Gresham's law of planning says that the routine work drives out the non-routine work. So bad money drives out good money. What does it mean? If there is black money in the market, then what will happen? If there is black money, what will happen?
That in itself will become a parallel economy.
No, so what it will do? What will the consequence of black money?
So the legal system will be undermined.
See, most of the transactions you do in cash or maybe non-formal ways. So what happens? The prices, the demands increase. But in reality, the people who reach the earning class, they do not have the money. So who is increasing the demand? The people who have the black money. Okay. But most of, you see, this real estate, the commodity sector, most of this, the demand comes from the middle class. The middle class does not have the money of that nature. But the businessmen, traders, okay, brokers, they have huge money, liquid money. So what they do, they start putting their money into those commodities and housing sector, real estate and all, they start putting that money. Eventually what happens, the people who have the formal money, the legal money, they will not be able to spend that money because it is out of their range. So proliferation of certain sectors purely on the black money. So it excludes a major mass, that is the middle class, from the consumption of those activities or those commodities. That is the impact of the black money. Okay. Prices will rise, nobody knows from where it is rising, because demand is there. So imagine the earning class is not demanding, but still the demand is increasing. Okay, that means what? It is basically hoarding, monopoly. But substantively your need is not being fulfilled, but the demand is increasing. How? That means what? One builder is buying 5 houses. So there is a scarcity and non-availability of certain commodities for the people who are basically the earning class. Planning. So Gresham's law of planning is related to same logic. It is based on same logic. Okay, that the routine drives out the non-routine. Okay, any scope of creativity, anybody having a tendency of creativity, he also leaves that tendency within the bureaucracy, because neither it is rewarded, neither there is time for those things. So if you are engaged in so much of formalisms, routine type things, protocols, this, then where will you have time for all this? Okay. So people who are genuinely creative, they will also lose the motivation within the bureaucracy, and they also seek or they start pursuing the routine things. They also get formalized. Right. Similar to Gresham's law of planning, which says that the routine drives out the non-routine. The routine drives out the non-routine. Routine drives out the non-routine. Next line. Formalism or observing protocols the protocols becomes the main responsibility of the bureaucrat. Formalism or observing protocols becomes the main responsibility of the bureaucrat at the neglect of social development. Because development requires what? It requires innovation. Okay. So they are not ready, they are not eager. Even if they are eager, their tendency is no more there for going for such kind of challenges. Okay. Third law. Okay, so triviality deals with everything. Obsessed with detail, obsessed with procedure. Okay. Black pen se sign nahi kiya. You did not sign it with the black pen. Your photograph seems to be very old. Okay, you need to bring this. Okay. Your face does not match this photograph. He will tell you all those things. Why? Because he is not concerned with the purpose. He is concerned with the procedure. Okay. Right. Law of inverse. Okay. It is also similar to this. Okay. It's saying that if there is more money, okay, if there is more money with the department, so it will never happen that the department will rationally evaluate its activities, okay, and send back the surplus money to the government. It will never happen. So he says, then what will happen to that money? In the formal way, they cannot use it for themselves. They have to show it on paper. So what they'll do? So he's saying same thing, that the work expands not because there is work, but because there is surplus money. So it will what kind of work which is not required, but it will be created on paper. Same way he's saying, if the bureaucrat has more time, okay, let us say the work gets finished and he has time. Now what will he do? He will stretch the work to fill the time. It is not the other way. That the time will be according to the rationality of the work. But it will be, or the work will be expanded to fill the time. The work will be expanded to fill the surplus money. Okay. He's saying this is the tendency of the bureaucracy, that if they have more resource, okay, they will always create work. Even though the work may be mostly superfluous in nature. So he's saying that it is the time gap or the time excess time which the bureaucracy may have or a bureaucrat may have. What he'll do? He'll stretch the same work in that time, which could have been done in a much lesser time. So essentially what he is trying to do, he is justifying the misuse that he does, or for which he may be punished, or for which he should be punished within the department, but he gets rewarded for that. That he has at least completed the task. Nobody is concerned with the evaluation whether the task required this much money or this much time. People are happy that the task has been completed. He is saying it is law of inverse. Okay. The importance of a particular work is not necessarily related to its role. So if they don't have any important work, they will make unimportant work important, just to highlight their own importance. So he's saying that whatever happens in bureaucracy, it has nothing to do, okay, or whatever these people are highlighting, okay, whatever these people are saying, whatever these people are committing, it has nothing to do with the real need of the society. Are you understanding? So you will make bridges, you will make dams, you may make so many things, and every time you will justify the cost. Many times, so many things are there which might not be needed by the society. Who needed demonetization? Nobody. Who wants GST? Okay. It is a historical fact that in any country where the GST has been implemented, the governments have lost it. It has been reversed in number of countries. Okay. Developed countries. So even the average logic also does not say that, okay, implement that in India. So when the UPA was in power, it wanted to implement, then this government or this party never wanted it to be implemented. So it goes like this. So what is the meaning? That there is something like myth of meritocracy. There is no merit, but there is only a myth of meritocracy. You will experience it when you will go to Labasna. You will talk to any topper, he will give you names of 1,000 books he studied. If you ask him what is written, he may not be knowing. So there are people who have scored 380 marks in PubEd, but who cannot define governance. They will say safely, oh, I escaped, I omitted chapter 1. I did not prepare. I focus more on paper 2. So the logic is that you cannot always claim, okay, that this system is meritocratic, this is what is criticizing. Right. Law of inverse. And I know many of them personally, posted in your behalf. Right. Right. Law of inverse, according to Parkinson, the bureaucracy creates work, mostly superfluous. Bureaucracy creates work, mostly superfluous, in order to justify the surplus time and money available. In order to justify the surplus time and money available. And not necessarily because of the nature of work. Okay. In fact, if the budget is surplus, non-productive activities would be created. Activities would be created, comma. If the time is surplus, the work will be stretched. To fill the time. So it is very logical. He is saying that whatever laws the Weber thinks about, all these laws, okay, seem to be good in his theory, but in reality, these are the laws on which the bureaucracy functions and not on the law which he thinks. Okay, this question has been asked before also, okay, and it will be asked always. Okay. So you have to memorize first this, and then you have to analyze that if this happens, what will happen? What will be the impact on the public fund? What will be the impact on the budgetary process? Okay, what will be the impact on the functioning or performance of the bureaucracy? What will be the impact on the lower level bureaucracy? But they will also become corrupt. They will become partners, the higher level bureaucracy. Okay. Unless higher level bureaucracy includes the lower level bureaucracy, they cannot do this. Okay. So this tendency gets percolated right to the bottom. So if the question comes, you have to analyze it that way, not just write it and leave. Fine. Will you be able to analyze it? Okay, I'll give you 2-3 questions. You will understand how do we. Okay, write a question. Write 2 questions just below this. This is a very important law. Okay, right. How does Parkinson's law view, how does the Parkinson's law view the nature of bureaucracy? View the nature of bureaucracy. Discuss with respect to its consequences in a developing country like India. With respect to its consequences in a developing country like India. Second, within quotes you write or within apostrophe, the work is created to fill the time gap. The work is created to fill the time gap and the expansion of departments do not have any proportional significance. Expansion of departments do not have any proportional significance to the task they have to perform. To the task they have to be performed, unquote, or apostrophe close. Now you write. With which principle the above statement could be associated? With which principle the above statement could be associated? Associated, is it in contrast to the notion of Weberian idealism. Another question, like, according to Peter's principle, bureaucracy is a myth of meritocracy. According to Peter's principle, bureaucracy is a myth of meritocracy. Comment. Is a myth of meritocracy. Comment. Okay, Donald P. Warwick, he is also a dominant organizational theorist. In fact, he has contributed to systems theory also. Okay. Open model of organizations. Okay. He is talking about an idea the administrative Darwinism versus administrative Darwinism versus bureaucratic idealism. What is administrative Darwinism? What it could be? Rational will survive or flexible will survive? So rationality is a hindrance to the adaptation. Okay. So he is saying that if we compare, then most of the open model organizations, open models are what kind of organizations? Which are receptive to changes. So, let us say a family which is dominantly using religion okay, or the traditional value system as its mainstay for existence, okay, will it be ready to change it? Why not? Why will it not change easily? No, religion will do something. Because of that they will not change. What it will do? It is a cultural entity. Okay, you imbibe it. Okay, that means what? The values which become entrenched, very difficult to change. What kind of values the bureaucracy promotes? It wants a behavioral attribute also, it has a structural attribute also, and the structural attribute also creates a kind of behavioral attribute. Okay. So he is saying that if the organizations are designed in such a way, okay, that they do not have or they have some entrenched value system, that this is right, this is wrong, okay, this is good, this is bad, this is efficient, this is inefficient, then what will happen? The organizations will always try to seek the rational path. That rational path is the rigid path. So he is saying in the closed model, the rationality means following what has been given. In the open model, the rationality means what? Exploring what is not there. So any organization which is ready to explore, take risk, have low, let's say, less number of predictable solutions it has, okay, it wants to experience the changes and then go for looking for new solutions, those organizations will what? Exist. Okay. Survival of the fittest, but survival of the fittest will not apply here. The fit may mean rational. Here the fittest is one who adapts. So change is more important. He is saying that administrative Darwinism should be the value system of the modern organization and not the bureaucratic idealism. But then Nicholas Henry, ultimately, he comes with his own idea, even though he is saying the same thing, that competence and hierarchy, competence and discipline, they come in conflict with each other. But Nicholas Henry, ultimately, he comes with the idea, he says that whatever we follow, whatever new we create, ultimately every organization tends to be rational. So he's saying all the organizations would love to be eventually like bureaucracy, whether deliberately or maybe non-deliberately. So you see anything, civil society movement, spontaneous, emotional response to certain things. Okay. There is no formal aggregation method, there is no procedure which is followed, but eventually what they want, they create a captain, they create a group of people, okay, they formalize the procedures. What they do? Rationality. NGOs pursuing developmental goals, but ultimately they also formalize themselves, they develop into an organization, a structure. Okay. Anything which you talk about. So Nicholas Henry is saying that, okay, whatever we do, ultimately every organization will tend to rationalize. So even administrative Darwinism, the concept that he uses, Warwick, okay, if we talk about open model organizations and they are flexible, so he's saying even if they are flexible, they are interacting with the environment, changing themselves, but ultimately they will also try to acquire one stable position, and that stable position is the rational position. Okay. No organization wants to be in the dynamic change forever. Impossible. In fact, it cannot exist that way. There has to be certain things which may be stable. Okay. So we can say the stable core, the changing periphery, like the definition of Pobbat given by one of the theorists. So every organization needs what? A stable core. It may have a changing periphery, but it requires a stable center, and that stable center will always be bureaucratic. Okay. Even though he is criticizing, but ultimately that is counter-criticized by Nicholas Henry. Okay, so you can just write his name and the concept. Donald P. Warwick. Comes with the idea of administrative Darwinism. Administrative Darwinism, that is, administrative Darwinism, that is, the organizations that have the ability to adapt to changes, comma, which are ready to learn and are engaged in a continuous feedback can survive better than the structures, better than the organizations, right? Better than the organizations which are based on bureaucratic idealism. Okay. Though adaptation may be a key feature of modern organizations, in the bracket you write open model. The modern organizations, that is, or in the bracket open model, ultimately every organization tends to rationalize. In the bracket, Nicholas Henry. Can you give me an example? Recently we have studied certain things. Routinization of charisma is what? A process of rationalization. So yes, you can have the impact of the charismatic authority may be much more profound than the legal rational authority or even the traditional authority, but its stability is questionable. So any open system you create, it may have spontaneity, the gelling factor may be very high or the index of the emotional bond may be very high, but ultimately that organization may not be stable. Okay. So he is saying that stability is a very key factor. It's not just the adaptation. But he brings his idea of Darwinism and he says that no, that if the organizations tend to be bureaucratic, ultimately they will collapse. Okay, but that is not true. Later we'll study contingency model. Okay, contingency model is also a criticism of the bureaucracy. But contingency model itself, okay, ultimately says that no, okay, there is a need for a stable structure within the organization. That is known as the structural contingency model. Contingency is saying as the situation changes, we must change. Okay, but who are we? That is more important, no? Okay, so we must change. We will become he, then he will become she. Okay, then she will become something. That will not happen. No? There has to be something that we can call as we. Okay, that is the logic of structural contingency model. But okay, so it is a criticism also in somewhere supporting the Weber. Okay, there is another criticism of the bureaucracy given by the gender theorists, or you can write the gender perspective. Who have contributed to this? Any idea? What can be the criticism? Yesterday we talked about a little bit. So the gender perspective, it arrived quite late, or late means 1960s. Okay. Mary Parker Follett was one of the female theorists within the PubAD or organizational theory. There were others also. It was not just MP Follett. MP Follett became famous. But one of the reasons cited by some theorists or some people who evaluated her work later, okay, they are saying that she could not become very famous during the classical era. Okay. Why she could not become famous? So they said because her writings were obviously much different from the dominant value system or the dominant principles of the classical era. And at the same time, whatever she said might not be applicable to the Industrial Revolution. Okay. And also because she was a female, she could not become a dominant theorist. Okay. So both the reasons have been cited, that maybe because she was a female and her acceptance in that particular era was not easy. Why? Can you tell me why it was not easy? It's not just the patriarchy. In the war, if you are going to fight a war, okay, you will ask your younger brother to come along with you, but you won't ask your wife. Okay. Why will that be? There is a stereotyping. Okay, there is a gender stereotyping. So the phase of Industrial Revolution, okay, labor-intensive industries, labor-intensive economic activity, okay, obviously the literature which came up on the management and the organizational management, okay, it was considered that, okay, yes, if we treat organizations from the female-centric point of view, then they are not the effective organizations to govern the economic system of this phase. Or you can say there was an stereotyping even within the academicians also, within the academic and the intellectual circuits of various disciplines, whether sociology or whatever. So PubAD also suffered the same thing, that people did not consider the attributes which were necessary for creating an organization or for understanding the organization were related to the females. So female or feminine or effeminate attributes were considered to be hindrance to the efficiency of organization. So if you have to exploit the worker, you have to exercise authority, okay, you have to be power centric, you have to control and supervise, you have to punish them, then obviously none of these attributes match the attributes of the females. So there is a theorist, Cathy Ferguson, so she is saying the discourse on bureaucracy, or for that matter rationality, the discourse on bureaucracy or rationality was coincident with saying in public administration the discourse on bureaucracy or rationality was coincident with the discourse on domesticity. That means what? That rationality is not an attribute of the female. So the females have a domestic role, okay, or the theory of domesticity that we say, that the females are more suitable to do domestic chores and the males are suitable for this kind of labor work or whatever the economic activities, mostly the productive activities, okay, or labor intensive activities. So it said the rationality or the discourse on the rationality and bureaucracy, whatever the theories which emerged, they did not consider, okay, from the point of view of gender. Whatever they developed or even presumed, everything was coming somewhere from the stereotyping of the male or the female within the society. The society reflected the sentiments, or sentiments of the society were reflected in the theories on bureaucracy. That is the logic. That what was the social disparity existent in the society, the same was visible in the theory making. Have you understood this or not? That means society reflected within the theory, or within whatever literature that developed regarding organization, efficiency, productivity and rationality. Is it clear? But it is not true. Is it true? Most of the women in India employed in the informal sector. Informal sector is obviously not a service sector. Mostly labor-based work. Okay. So that may not be totally true. Okay. But yes, in the formal sector, why there is a need for gender perspective? Because we have to view that whether the bureaucracy as a form of organization, does it create an opportunity structure for females? What is opportunity structure? That means, does it limit the level of growth of females within the organization and also outside the organization, both? Okay, that is the reason for studying the gender perspective. So first we want to know whether the bureaucracy or the theory of bureaucracy, does it include any or does it accommodate any of the attributes of the female or the gender first. Secondly, whether this kind of structure was an outcome of the existent stigma attached to the females or the role of females in the society. Both. So the institutions also reflected this stigma or the disparity, and the academics or the theory also reflected this disparity. In India today also it is visible. The higher level bureaucracy, if you see all India services, so IAS almost 17% females. But IAS and IPS less than 7%. IPS and IFS, Indian Forest Services and Indian Police Services, less than 7% females. Informal sector, more than 70% females, mostly in the agriculture. So when they are not enjoying the protection of the formal sector, that means they are more vulnerable to the exploitation of the society. And nobody is viewing or analyzing the economic system from this perspective, that if there is an expansion of service sector in Indian economy, then what proportion of the service sector is employed or is inhabited by the females. Males are good cooks, males are chefs, males are cooks, males are trainers, okay. Males are providing number of other services, okay. So it is quite obvious that even in the services sector also, most of the employment opportunities have gone to the males than the females. Okay. So there is a need for analysis. That is what the logic of studying the gender. Okay. So Cathy Ferguson, okay, or for that matter Annabelle, Bethe, many people are there. Okay. Then Martha Nussbaum, Kamala Stewart, all of them have analyzed, okay, that whether, okay, and ultimately they have arrived at the conclusion that yes, most of the social sciences literature do not reflect a sensitivity towards the gender or the females. Okay. But for PubMed it is specifically important. Okay, if you talk about an autonomous public administration, okay, a rational bureaucracy, okay, or an administration capable of transforming the society. So how can you have an administration which is totally male-centric, transforming or fulfilling the needs of the gender needs of the society? Is it possible to have an all-male bureaucracy which is sensitive to the needs of the females? Impossible. Okay, there is no political reservation in India, is it? Only local governments? Okay, there is no reservation in the public services except certain states who have given horizontal reservation to females. Okay. There is hardly a demand and agitation for the reservation of females in politics and reservation of females in the public employment. If there is an expansion of the private sector employment taking place in India, then there must be a compulsory or a mandatory percentage of employees coming from the females or coming from the rural India, coming from the backward regions of the country, and especially the females. But they will be more employed in the call centers than in the important roles within the organization. One reason might be the lack of literacy and education, but that is not the only reason. In urban areas where there is more proportion of females, educated females, there also their participation in the workforce is not very high. 2015-16 data. Okay. By who collects data in India for NSSO? Okay. And NFHS. So they have come up. Okay, they have identified a percentage decrease in the workforce in the rural area, female workforce in the rural area. Okay, and a very little increase in the female workforce in the urban area. Okay. So from 14.6% to 15.62% in the urban area there has been an increase. Okay. But in the rural area from 26% it has decreased to 21%. Why this should have happened? Okay, because if you think of gender perspective, don't just think of this theoretical logic which they are using. You can use these terms, no doubt. So your basic concept will be built on this logic. But how you are going to write the answer, you have to bring it into the practical aspect. So if you review, unless you have the knowledge of data or the facts, you cannot substantiate your argument. You cannot say that there is a gender divide within the public services in India. Okay. How many chief secretaries you can cite as females, even today, right now? And army, police, paramilitary, discriminatory towards them. So if you go and see the actual numbers, you will find that there is huge discrimination, no doubt. And if we classify female now into different categories, females from the rural area, females from minorities, females from backward caste, then the data is much more shocking. Okay. So unless you bring that data, you cannot substantiate the theory. Are you getting? So we were asking, or we were talking about why would there have been a decrease in the female workforce in the rural India? Okay. Correct. Correct. Income कैसे बढ़ा? You're right. Narega and और कैसे बढ़ा होगा इनकम? स्वच्छ भारत अभियान से इनकम तो नहीं बढ़ा होगा? अच्छा. You think about it. Don't go and just Google it. Okay. Google is opium. Like Marx is saying, religion is the opiate of the masses. So Google is like opiate. The more you use it, okay, the more gayab this portion will be. Okay. So at least think about it. That okay, why? What would be the reasons? What policies the government has taken? All right, midday meal scheme. मतलब गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेंशन से है, या प्राइवेट इनिशिएटिव से हुआ, या एग्रीकल्चर चेंज से हुआ, डाइवर्सिफिकेशन ऑफ जॉब्स भी हुआ है रूरल एरिया में. You're correct. When the income increases, self-help group movement नहीं है उसके लिए contribution. When the female or the income of the family increases, it is very obvious the female will go back to the domestic role. So this is basically the phenomenon at the lower levels. lower economic strata, not in the higher economic strata. Okay. In the middle class, you will not find this change. Okay. There, the males and females both are working. Okay. Not necessarily just to survive, because they have to have a particular type of lifestyle. Okay. So probably the female's income maintains the lifestyle and the male's income is used for saving. Or it may be vice versa. Okay. You don't know who is getting more salary. Okay. But you can say logically, now at the higher class level there is no need. So less women work at the higher class, less women at the lower class, if the family income increases, but not in the middle class. If the family income decreases, okay, in the higher class also female will not work, but in the lower class the female will work. Okay. Though it may not be universal trend. Okay. That is known as, in economics it is known as feminization U hypothesis. Okay. Economic sociology, feminization U hypothesis. It starts like this, then it goes down, and then again it increases. Female participation in workforce. Okay. Right. The gender perspective of bureaucracy. Just slide 2-3 lines is okay. Right. Okay. Right. This is a post-1960s development. This is a post-1960s development where the academic fraternity in the field of public administration started questioning the relevance of theories mostly classical, with respect to their gender sensitivity. Okay, theorists like Cathy Ferguson, Martha Nussbaum, I'm writing the names. Cathy Ferguson, Martha Nussbaum, Camilla Stevers, Annabelle, not the movie. So, McNamara, number of theories are there. Betty, etc. have highlighted the obvious absence of a gender concern in most of the traditional classical theories of organization / public administration. Both you can understand that way. Organization / public administration. Fine. So this would be technically the last criticism. There are so many other criticisms, but again we'll move forward. Okay. So once this is over, then 1940s comes, okay, and the entry of the Simon. Okay. So human relation movements parallelly emerging post Taylor, okay, and post Weber and post Gulick and Ervik, the Herbert Simon comes. Okay, these are like parallel development. They are the criticisms of the classical model. Okay. So paradigm 2 sees both. One is the emergence of human resource management. It is paradigm 2, but not unit 1. Are you getting this? Should be very clear. Unit 2, unit 4, unit 3, unit 4, unit 8. All are running parallelly within this. Okay. So when parallelly what human resource management human relations management comes, Mayo comes, and Simon comes both. So Simon comes obviously a little late, Elton Mayo comes before, but Elton Mayo's criticism is basically of the Taylorism and the scientific management. It is not a general criticism of classical approach. Okay. But it is a very important criticism. Okay. So we'll start from Monday, whatever we have to. Meanwhile, you kindly read whatever the notes I have given, which is related to what we are doing. Don't read, obviously there are some complicated topics. Okay. Like chapter, booklet number 2, first chapter. Don't read it, otherwise you might be demotivated. Okay. You read it later. In case you are understanding, you can read it. There is no limitation. But right now you can read the theories, mostly the theories which are given, and there is one, Paradigms of Nicholas Henry. Okay. That part you can read, not more than that. See you on Monday.